Hello and welcome to the Savage Goose Show, where we talk about all things Savage Worlds from the past week. I'm your host, Goose, and today we're going to be talking about something different than originally planned. You probably came in with a nice title about Deadlands and the Abominable Northwest and the nice image, but things are changing a little bit. So let's talk about why by starting off with the news. So we're going to do a newsletter, as always, Kickstarters, any other news that I find and wanted to bring up. And then we're going to talk about our main topic again. Not entirely sure what that is going to be because things change. So let's kind of just dive into why that is. Switch over here to our newsletter. So the first piece of news is Deadlands, the Abominable Northwest, is coming soon. It's not coming today. Originally, it was planned that it would be today at noon, I think Eastern time, actually, and they've delayed it. Which the reason they said they delayed it is that they're gonna hold off for longer because they want to get caught up on some other projects that we've been waiting for, including Deadlands Light Train, Savage Worlds 20th anniversary celebration, and a few other products. And so they're getting ready, getting that part of getting that campaign ready, but they are decided to delay that until they kind of finish up some of these other projects. And honestly, that's fine with me. Maybe we'll talk about that instead as part of one of our main topics. But we'll go ahead and head down to the next section. This week on the Savage Universe, JM is going to talk to Rollsborn gang for a chat about their actual play Shadows over Harkham. This is the first I've heard about this live play, or actual play, I should say. So I'll have to give it a listen and see what I think. But I mean, I like Call of Cthulhu-esque games. If it's a Savage Worlds Call of Cthulhu type game, that sounds cool. So I'm totally down for that kind of game. Looking forward to it. SWAGtember is still happening. It's happening for all of September. So if you're interested in getting the SWAGtember 6 Creators Bundle, this is a bunch of products from the Savage Worlds Adventurers Guild. It's like a community type project. I thought about last week. So if you want to go hear more about it, you can look at last week's. But if you want to get a whole bunch of really great Savage Worlds products from some of our great community content makers, you can get over $100 worth of products for $30. That's like 70% off. So yeah, go check it out. So help support the creators that make content for our game that we love, and there's some really cool things in there. So I'm not gonna go through this because I did last week. So just look at last week's live stream. But there's some really cool stuff in here. I would highly recommend taking a look at that and get your hands on this. Red Librarian crowdfunds a new printing of Suede in Russian. So there's a new crowdfunding campaign going on for a Russian version of Suede. So if you really want to a Russian version, check this out. But it's also just cool to see that there is going to be other products available in other languages to see the game grow by extending the support for the product to other languages. So love seeing that kind of stuff where we can see more content out there in more languages so we can grow the game. Let's see here. Going through all that. Swag Spotlight this week is Salt and Chrome Preview Edition for Savage Worlds, which is a Sprawlrunners driven plot point campaign. This is one of the products that is inside of the SWAGtember release. So if you want to get this, you can get it on its own, or you can just go get the SWAGtember release and get all the products, including this one. This is a kind of like a preview edition of what they're going for a full-on plot point campaign. If you don't know what a plot point campaign is, it's a little bit different than some of your more campaigns you might be used to if you're coming from games like D&D. Plot point campaigns is like they just have this is a plot point. This is a thing that's going to happen, and here's some details around it. A lot of your players can explore it as they will, but it doesn't have to be immediately connected to every other point of the campaign. It's not like you go from this point immediately into this other point. Players might. I've even had players completely skip plot points. They just go, you know what? I think it was the interface. No, not interface hero. The last Parsec game I ran where they completely skipped on the plot points. They're like, you know what? Everything's pointing to us going here, so let's just go there. I'm like, all right, cool. Let's just go there. So plot point campaigns are really versatile. I think they really help kind of emphasize a little more of that episodicness, kind of give clear breaks to things, but also allow players and GMs to kind of manage things in different ways and kind of be a little more loose with things, but still kind of make a clear guidance on what's supposed to happen next. So this one is for the Sprawlrunners, which is a specific book that you can get on. It's pretty much the book for cyberpunk in Savage Worlds besides Interface 0. It's not like setting specific, but it's kind of give you an idea of like, hey, here's the kind of things you can do for your version of Cyberpunk. It's like a Cyberpunk companion to Savage Worlds. So this is going to be a plot point campaign using that as a basis. So look for that. Support a great cause, plus save big on Pine Box Middle School. Pinnacle Entertainment Group, along with a number of other allied publishers, are stepping up to support several fantastic charities. Sorry, I'm reading through here. Basically, so right now, Martin Poole, head of gaming at Battlekit, is publishing a heartwarming and very personal children's book called The Big C. They're supporting the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. So check that out. As part of that, they're also selling Pine Box Texas Middle School products for 25% off. So if you're interested in supporting this charity and want to get the product at a decent discount, check that out. If I had some extra cash lying around, I'd think about getting the. I wish I would have gotten the box set way back then for this. So that's still my list of things I want to get myself a hold of. I'm a big fan of the movie Super 8, which this kind of I think fits into this kind of theme of like kids on bikes, Pine Box Middle School. So yeah, so if you want to get any of their products on for 25% off, check that out. And we end as always with our crowdfunding status reports. Necessary Evil is shipping. I think I've seen some people already get their shipments, so they should be like finishing that up. They're organizing for shipping for the Savage Worlds 20th anniversary celebration, which is awesome. It's been a long time since that Kickstarter happened, and I'm excited to finally get my hands on those things. But not just me, actually. 2 of my players also backed this Kickstarter, so they'll also be getting their players' guides, which will make things run way more smoothly for us to like not to share books to figure out things, and also keep players from looking at their phones. So this will definitely help that area. Deadlands Night Train and Science Fiction Companion are all both in Pledge Manager. And then Pathfinder for Savage Worlds booster campaign. The feedback is closing Friday. So if you have any more feedback about that particular book, give it in Friday. I kind of gave a whole entire stream about my feedback. Not just like mistakes and stuff, but there's things I'm like, I don't think I really care for the way this works. So do that you will. And then we're still just going to be waiting for that Kickstarter. So, Hampshire wanted to say, Salt and Chrome was written by Jetty of City Guard Chronicles fame. If it's other works an indication, this is going to be brilliant. Agreed, because I love the City Guard Chronicles. I think I've talked about them like every week at this point lately, at least like the past like month. Absolutely love the City Guard Chronicles. I ran a one sheet from it on Thursday. I don't think it's good. They're still one sheets. There's a lot lacking in a one sheet. I mean, it took me like about 2 hours to finish. So it wasn't like a whole lot necessarily to go on necessarily. But it's still good for a 2-hour game. Gave me all the things I needed for a 2-hour game. And I love the full on adventures there. And my wife's like basically says I can't run any new ones unless she plays in them. So I can run the old ones, just not any of the new ones. So yeah. Awesome stuff there. So Jetty's written some great stuff. And if he working on this, it's probably gonna be great too. There's other things he's worked on too. I'm just not as familiar with the other products he's worked on. I mostly just know him for the City Guard Chronicles because I love those adventures. Yeah. All right. So other Kickstarters. Let's go ahead and get this into a little bit bigger for you guys. There we go. So we don't know when Deadlands is coming. They said that they're delaying when they're going to release it, but they didn't say how long they're delaying it. Could have been till tonight, or it could have been, could be for a week. I don't think I've seen any news exactly on how long it's going to be. If you do know how long it's going to be, leave a comment down below, and I'll be happy to share that out so we can all figure that out. But I think if they knew how long they're going to delay it, they would have probably put that into the newsletter. So I don't really think it's any point in speculating. Just wait. We'll hear more soon once they're ready. And again, I'm kind of we'll talk about that later, I think. Coming Tuesday, September 17th, is the Broken Earth campaign. So that's going to be next Tuesday. Forgetting his name right now, I apologize to him for this. But Broken Earth, it's a setting about a post-apocalyptic setting, or and it's using Savage Worlds. There was a version for Deluxe Edition, and they're updating it for Suede. There's also a version for 5e, or I believe some sort of like 5e type game. So that Kickstarter's coming, and we'll actually have them on to talk about this Kickstarter, talk about the setting in a couple weeks. I don't think it's gonna be next week, as I remember. Yeah, because it's not gonna be next week. It's gonna be the week after. So we'll have them on, and we'll be able to talk more about that. So if you have any questions, leave them down below so we can talk about them further. And then coming in October, I don't think they've announced the exact date yet for when this is going live, but Starbreaker, Saints and Sinners from Star Anvil Studios, they're going to be on our live stream on October 2nd to talk about this particular product. We are going to be bumping that live stream out 1 hour later to help with organizing to 9 p.m. So on October 2nd at 9 p.m. Eastern time, we'll be having this Kickstarter, or this discussion and live stream about this particular Kickstarter. So look forward to that, and to the Kickstarter, because I don't know, the art kind of looks cool. I'm liking the design. There's a lot more like a redesign they've done into it recently from the original Quick Start. So I think it's looking pretty cool. I'm excited for it. Battlelords is also working on a new product. Both they did it already for the OG Battlelords game, but there's also for the Savage Battlelords game. They're going to be doing a Kickstarter then, sometime in October as well. I think they're looking at late October. Maybe that might change. I think they're looking at late October though, and they're also going to be on the week after, so October 2nd. I think that over 8th or 9th to talk about the new Battlelords book as well. So lots of people coming on the next few weeks to talk about different products, different things. Just a lot of fun stuff coming happening. I'm excited. I'm excited to have all these people on and talking about all the different products that we're working on, all the things that are being made for the game we love. All right, so that is everything there. So originally, my plan for today's live stream was I was going to go through the Kickstarter for Deadlands. I was going to give basically an elevator pitch of what Deadlands is, for those who aren't super familiar. I can't say I know a lot about the lore of Deadlands. Deadlands has a pretty decent amount of lore, not just around the events in the Deadlands itself game, but also in the events of Lost Colony, of Hell on Earth. There's Deadlands Noir. There's all these different like settings and time periods that Deadlands takes place in, and they all kind of start with the Weird West and a lot of things that change there. And so there's a lot of, so I was going to start with kind of just giving a pitch about that, and then looking at the Kickstarter for the Abominable Northwest and kind of talking about what cool things they're adding, what I'm excited for, and those kind of details. But things change, and I get that. And instead, they are working on the products that they are currently, so we're still waiting as consumers to receive. And I think at this point, I'm really okay with that. I think a lot of that kind of that waiting has been kind of, I don't want to say annoying me. There's a lot of waiting that I'm doing. Part of it's because I have a lot of Kickstarters I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for 20th anniversary celebration. I'm waiting for Deadlands Night Train. I'm waiting for the Science Fiction Companion. I'm waiting for Pathfinder, for Savage Worlds Booster Campaign. There's a lot of things that I'm like waiting for. That's 4 things from Pinnacle that I'm waiting for, that I've ordered and waiting for. And then there's also like the other Kickstarters and other products that I'm waiting for from other producers like Star Anvil. Well, actually, the Star Anvil one, I'm just waiting for the printer to get from Drive-Thru RPG gets me. Street Wolves, I'm waiting for. No, I'm missing some other ones. Solomon Kane, we just got the PDFs for Solomon Kane. We can talk about that a little bit because I briefly went through the Solomon Kane PDF. I did not get very far, but we can talk about that a little bit too because it's an interesting thing that they're doing that's very unique to that particular product. Curse of Yig says, due to my Headstone Hill campaign wants to make a harrowed samurai or ninja. Everyone else is playing the usual Deadlands fare. You say usual Deadlands fare as if like ninja and samurai are not normal, but I've heard a lot of people talk about their Deadlands games looking like that, where it's just like a lot of mixtures of different people, like pirates and ninjas. So makes sense. I can see it. But yeah, so I'm happy that they're actually focusing on kind of getting the other products that we've been waiting for out and in our hands. And I think they want to take their foot off the gas on missing products just to kind of focus on getting the products that we've already ordered in our hands. I think that's great. Yeah, so I'm excited for that, and I'm okay with it. I'm hoping that they don't need to keep doing these Kickstarters in order to kind of keep going. I'm hoping that they can. I'm hoping that things are going well financially at Pinnacle, that they're able to just like get these products out there and just focus on getting them in our hands and then kind of work on the next thing. I know that there's some other third-party publishers who are like that, where they have several Kickstarters that they have planned, but they don't like to start the Kickstarter for the next one until the previous one's finished. And I definitely get that for sure as well. That makes things a lot easier on everyone, especially on us waiting, because like right now with Pinnacle, we're waiting quite a long time to get this stuff. And yeah, obviously I do love Pinnacle and their products, and I hope I wish them all the best. But in the end, we have to also keep in mind that we're dealing with businesses and they got businessy stuff, and we'd like to get our products. So I'm excited that they're focusing on getting those things and finishing those projects up rather than kind of just pushing forward with Bottles Northwest. And it means that once Northwest does come, they can focus more on Northwest because they don't have to worry about the other projects as well. Yeah. Amazon mentions, yeah, what's cool is that all those did exist around the same time period. Yeah, there's a really funny post going around the internet about how like this, and this. I can't remember all it was. Like it's like ninjas and samurais and cowboys, and I think the other one was like Victorian something. All existed around the same time period. So have a party in that time period with all those people makes sense. Actually, it tracks. So yeah. Yeah, so I don't really have much else to really talk. I was planning on going through the Deadlands Kickstarter and kind of talking more about that. Instead, though, what we could talk about is one, if anyone has any questions they want to ask and talk about, I'm happy to do so. But I think what else I could talk about is the interesting things going on with the Solomon Kane book. I haven't gotten to read through it too much, but I will say that there was a section of the book of the PDFs I got that made me a little bit worried about the how they were doing things. What I mean by that is that there was a section in the character sheets where it's got like your allies and your allies. I can't remember the other word they used, but allies was in that list. And in that section, they had some of the skills for your allies. The main character sheet just had all the skills listed were empty. I don't even think the core skills were like pre-printed in there, like the core sheet is. It was all empty. And sorry. No, cereal is not a soup. It's a stew. Anyways. Or maybe it's a chili. Anyways, the character sheet had some skills on it that were not skills. They had climb on there, they had throwing, and I think the other one was guts, which I think guts is like a setting rule for certain or a setting skill for certain settings. So that one I was like, okay, maybe that actually makes sense. I don't know, but I didn't see it listed in the core rulebook. Like, can you go to I don't mean the core rulebook like the Savage core rulebook. I mean the core rulebook for the Solomon Kane game, because one of the interesting things that's happening with the Solomon Kane game in the book is that it's the full rule set. You can just go buy Solomon Kane as a RPG book and take it home with you, and you don't need any other book to play. You don't need the core rules to play that game. Very much like what they did with the Pathfinder for Savage Worlds core rules, where you don't need the other book to play. You just need this. There's now essentially 3 core rule books out on the market now. This is the only 2 books that have ever done this, was this Pathfinder for Savage Worlds book and now the Solomon Kane book. Otherwise, you had to buy the Savage Worlds core rules. So I think that's a really interesting, and I know that there's like a special relationship there that was happening between Pinnacle and Monolith Games, the people who are producing the Solomon Kane RPG, using Savage Worlds rule set. On top of that, I know that they were part of what they were doing, from what I had heard, is that they were just taking kind of what the game that had already existed under Pinnacle. So Pinnacle had produced under Deluxe Edition a Solomon Kane game, the Savage Worlds of Solomon Kane, or something like that. And they had taken that game with Pinnacle's permission, because Pinnacle doesn't have the licensing anymore and Monolith does, and they took that and they updated it for Suede and they published it with the core rules under that Kickstarter. So my only concern is how they went about doing the conversion, because the character sheet to me seems like something that would be obvious, where all the skills that would just kind of jump out that they're not correct. And so the skills under the ally section had, like I said, had climbing, had throwing, had guts. Climbing and throwing got mixed, bundled in with athletics and Suede. And I even double checked to see, maybe they brought them back in this version, because it is a modified version of the Suede core rules. And I went into the Solomon Kane core rule book that they sent us and went through that skill list, and those skills weren't there either, including guts. So climbing, throwing, and guts were all not in that core rulebook. So I haven't gotten a chance to kind of dive deeper into it. I really didn't get that far at all, if I'm honest. I did check all the not all the monsters, but I kind of skimmed through a lot of the monsters and important people, and none of them had those skills. So I assume that it maybe is just the character sheet, and I'm hoping that that's the case. But it does make me want to more scrutinize everything to kind of get good feedback. So if you did the Kickstarter, I don't know if it's Kickstarter, but whatever, if you it was Kickstarter, I can't remember. If you did the project, if you backed the Solomon Kane RPG, I do highly recommend you go into the PDF and just kind of see if there's anything wrong that you can provide feedback on, so we can kind of get that fixed up before they sent this to the printer. I don't know if I'm hoping they haven't sent it to the printer yet. I don't know how they're doing feedback, if they're doing it much like Pinnacle does, but hopefully we can get those things sorted out before they send us the printer. So I will say I'm excited for the game though, and to get the product, because I got the vault tier, so I get all those minis that look really nice. I'm excited to get the book in the book sleeve, so it's going to be a really nice product when we get it. I'm looking forward to doing I'll probably do like an unboxing, or maybe like a live stream unboxing once I get it in my hands. I'm probably gonna do that with all of the Kickstarters I'm waiting for right now. Just do some sort of like unboxing and like briefly talking about it, and then kind of calling it there. So look forward to that. So I'm sorry this is gonna be a shorter live stream. I don't have as much to talk about as I had originally planned, but I will say what's coming up the next following weeks. Next week, Christian Serrano and I from the Immaterial Plane are going to be talking about, I don't remember how he put this, I believe the wording is bringing the setting to the table. So we're going to be talking about how to bring your setting that you want. And it doesn't have to be like the rules of the setting, just the settings themselves. And then taking that setting and bringing it into Savage Worlds. And talking about how you can kind of get resources to do that, how to go about doing it on your own, and all those kind of details as well. So that's going to be next week. The week after is the team from Broken Earth, and then it'll be Star Anvil, and then the Battlelord guys, and then the week after that, we are going to be looking at some horror games. It's gonna be October. It's gonna be Halloween, and we're gonna talk about all of the really fun horror games that are in Savage Worlds, and maybe we'll even talk a little bit about what about Savage Worlds lends itself to horror games, because it feels like there's a lot of horror elements in a lot of Savage Worlds games, and why is that? So we can talk about that. Curse of Yig says climbing, guts, and throwing were skills in Savage Worlds Solomon King book, the old one. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Is like, so I'm a little bit worried that because they took the old one and they have this old one and they're adapting it for Suede. I'm just hoping that they are doing a thorough job of it. I haven't looked through the rest of the book, but if they miss the character sheet section, that does make me worried they're going to miss some other area as well. When converting the Solomon Kane book, they'll probably get all the Suede rules right, but then once they actually start looking at converting things from Explorer's Edition into Suede, I'm worried that they may have missed something, like, oh, this changed between these two editions, and they just didn't get updated. And maybe there might be something that's kind of broken when you don't really think about the consequences of the changes in the editions. While I would say 80% of the previous edition of Savage Worlds matches with Suede, I think I think there are some things that really need to keep in mind on how those conversions happen. Like charisma. There is no charisma anymore. And I will say I didn't see charisma on the character sheet anymore, so I don't think they didn't seem to they missed that. But I am just worried that there might be some other things that got missed, and that so that'll prompt me. It's gonna prompt me to look through the rest. So yeah. Lily Blair says, world building is my fave. Love the little details that flavor a world. And I think what we're going to be focusing on is not just like the little details that flavor the world itself, but also the little details that make the feeling of the setting come out in gameplay. Sometimes people will talk about, oh, this in this world, this is how things work, but then the mechanics of the game don't really match. And one of the things that I think is great about Savage Worlds is that Savage Worlds is a toolbox, and there's a lot of different tools at your disposal. Some you can ignore, some you can add, and there's a way to kind of get the right feeling of the game by adding and removing certain parts of the game. Savage Worlds is very modular in that way, where you can kind of add in and take things out as needed. You can take skills out that aren't relevant. You can add in subsystems that are fun. There's really a lot of intuitive ways to add into the system that still feel natural. Sometimes when people add in other things to other games, it feels unnatural. And I think that a lot of things that you can do in Savage Worlds just feels very natural as part of the inherent pieces of the game. So we're going to be talking about how you can kind of explore those mechanics. A part of it, what we're going to do is exploring those mechanics and how you can get the feeling of the game with the right mechanics. So that's one of the things we're going to talk about. I'm not going to spoil anything else though for now. Evan Gosnell says, I'm curious how Suede does horror campaigns. Well, honestly, they do a lot of them. And it's about feeling. And sometimes it depends on what you define as horror. Are we talking like serial killer runaway games? Or are we talking about just really creepy monsters and having fear? There's a lot of campaigns that involve some level of horror and either being scared of the monsters or hunting the monsters or somewhere in between. Buffy the Vampire Slayer-esque games with ETU. You've got Victorian Supernatural. I want to say that. Yeah, sure. Victorian Supernatural with Rippers. All those kind of games. There's a lot of fun stuff that you can there's a lot of fun campaigns out there that kind of really do a lot of horror type things. Deadlands is I would consider Deadlands even though it's like a Weird West game, there is a lot of horror elements. You can probably downplay that in Deadlands. You can downplay a little bit of it, but at the same time, like if you're getting deep into the lore, a lot of it is horror. Because there's like different places that where your dread levels are going up. Not to be referred to my favorite horror system, which is Dread. So that's like the one, even though like I love Savage Worlds, for horror one shots, I love the game Dread. So maybe I'll do a video about Dread at one of these points, even though it's not Savage Worlds based, just because I love Dread. Savage Worlds, Curse of Geek says Savage Worlds is the perfect system to run a Hollow Earth expedition, just pure weird tales from 1930s pulp. I believe that Hollow Earth Expedition is something you can do in the Rippers game. Like, I think Rippers does have an adventure where you do Hollow Earth and you go see dinosaurs and stuff. I think that's a thing. If it's not, then if it's not a Rippers thing, there's at least some sort of adventure where you do Hollow Earth. I can't remember what though. I've Kilquato Adventure nailed it. I have that adventure printed out in my binder for like one shots. I haven't actually run it yet, so it's one of the ones I want to get out there. Evan Gosling says, "What is your favorite campaign genre?" My favorite campaign genre. I go through phases, where I'm like really wanting to do this and this and this and this. Right now I'm in two fantasy games. I'm running one Pathfinder for Savage game and I'm in another fantasy game. So I'm having like my fantasy desires satisfied there. Part of me is kind of wanting a sci-fi game. I've been waiting for Street Wolves, which is I'm going to call a retro future game, like a retro future, like proto cyberpunk almost. Takes place in like the late 80s, but has I don't know, it's got a lot of neon and stuff. a lot of synthwave feel. And I've been really want to do that. So my favorite, my favorite campaign genre, though, I love them all so much. I think a lot of people, at least for myself, I think I'm oversaturated with fantasy because fantasy is everywhere. Even like when you look at tabletop role playing game podcasts, it's unless you say otherwise, people assume you're playing fantasy. It feels like I feel like that. Whereas I like the idea of exploring other games and other genres. Our game before our current game, before our Pathfinder game, we were playing East Texas University. I've played through Rippers. I've played Last Parsec. So we have like, sci-fi, more traditional sci-fi to Victorian horror to modern day college horror a la Buffy to typical, you're a very, very typical fantasy game. So all those kind of different things. Just so many options there. Yeah, so I don't know what, I don't know if I could say like even amongst fantasy, there's different kinds of fantasy. You have like Vermilion is another game that for Savage Worlds that I desperately want to play, and I would call it fantasy, but it's like this like post apocalyptic fantasy, and has like a lot of these other things going on. It's just a really cool environment, and you're playing more anti-heroes than you are playing heroes. So there's a lot of just really cool stuff in there. So I think my favorite kind of here we go. I think my favorite genre is games that involve a lot of investigation, regardless of setting. So this maybe isn't a genre, but I like mystery games, I guess, or games where there's some sort of thing to investigate, and it's like clues to track down, and you're going from like thing to thing to thing, and you're like, okay, this we got a clue that's clearly leading us this way, so let's go this way and hopefully get more information from that guy, and then go here and get, which is why I love CDR Chronicles, because they do that kind of like step through the acts, the scenes, the clues very well. So maybe one of the reasons why I like that. Lily Blair says, I want to do a space campaign next one I run after we're done with our current one. Lily is the GM for my current fantasy game that I'm not running. So it's been a lot of fun, and it has been more that mystery element where we're trying to figure out what's going on and try to figure out like who's doing this. I think we've only had like a couple combats and a couple chases. So that's been fun, and I like to do a space game. Hamster Doom says, agreed in the oversaturation of fantasy. And I get why fantasy is the default, because a lot of people like fantasy is where the game started. Fantasy is where a lot of video games are. I mean, also video games are all over the place, but like there's a lot of, I think fantasy is definitely like a very default, because we can play down to it essentially, because it's, in a sense, it's like a world that we know more about what's things should be like necessarily, or was like, as far as like buildings and stuff, but also we can reimagine it with fantasy and everything. It's just a very well-known trope, I guess, fantasy. So it's very easy for them to kind of do that again. So yeah, there's some elements to that. And there's some people who do fantasy in very interesting and new ways. That can be, there's a reason like the fantasy genre of books is very wide. There's a lot of different kinds of fantasy out there. So I just trying to think like Eberron is, I would say, is a fantasy, but it's a very different fantasy than Forgotten Realms, and those are both D&D products. That being said, Christian Serrano, who's coming on next week, he did a conversion for Eberron for Savage Worlds. If you're interested in that, it's a very good conversion. It's just conversion notes. It's no lore, but very good conversion notes to run Eberron in Savage Worlds. So please do check that out. But there's a lot of good different kinds of way of doing fantasy. Like Vermilion is a really good way of doing fantasy. There's another fantasy book that Mike Shea talked about in this week's episode of his podcast, the Lizzie Dungeon Master show, Lady Dungeon Master show, where the world is like corrupted, like all the gods are gone, all like the way the magic works is completely broken essentially, and there's a lot of interesting like different things going on there. I had an idea for a fantasy game where back when I was playing more D&D, my thought was like, if everyone has magic to a certain level, you're some sort of level caster. I've thought about how I would convert this to Savage Worlds, but it's like if you want to go beyond a certain point, you have to worship the gods. If you want to go beyond a certain level of powers, you have to basically like become like a cleric to a god or an acolyte in some way. So if you're more of a bard, like you can do magic up to a certain point, but if you want to become more powerful, you need to become worship a god and get powers from the god to do the higher level casting. So it would probably make it so like if you're going to be a caster and you want to do anything above powers tied to novice, you have to like worship some sort of one of the beings and like that is still like that's divine magic for you. So that's one of the ideas I've had, and it's like a world where everyone's got magic somewhat, or things are very easy. No, not has magic, but magic's very prevalent, even if you're not casting it. It's out there. Emotions happen. If you're making a sword, and you got a lot of hate towards goblins, and you're pounding away the sword, you're going to give that sword some sort of magical ability to hate goblins. Or if you use it on a bunch of orcs, like as you use it over and over again, eventually that hatred's going to infuse in that that kind of thing. So there's a lot of cool different ideas that people have about fantasy that can be adapted to, and so that's one of the reasons that I think fantasy is so prevalent. Yeah, but nonetheless, there's a lot of genres that outside fantasy that I want to play. It's really hard for me to choose a favorite right now because there's so many that I want to play. If you ask me like what is one genre that's the only genre you can play for the rest of your career or whatever, I probably would say fantasy, just because there is a lot of fantasy out there to be adapted. There's a lot of sci-fi out there too, but I feel like a lot of sci-fi. There's something about sci-fi that just doesn't feel different than you have like sci-fi fantasy. There's a lot of genre mixing. I don't know. I don't have to choose. I like them all. I like most of them at least. So, yeah. All right. Well, thank you all for hanging out. I know this was a shorter stream. I know we didn't talk about the Kickstarter. So let's change the thumbnail or something about this. But next week we'll be talking with Christian Serrano about how to bring a setting to the table, and looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to talking to him and kind of talking more about our thoughts and such. And yeah, I'm excited for it. I really am, and I'm really excited that he was willing to come on. So coming next week, listen to Christian and his wonderful voice. If you don't know, Christian's got an amazing, very good voice. I will make sure that his voice sounds better than it did last time. There was a setting that I needed to tweak last time, so apologies for that. And with that, I wish you all a good night. Cheers, everyone.